There are some sounds your body never forgets. For me, it was laughter. Not happy laughter. Not the kind that comes from a family dinner or a joke that lands at just the right time. I mean the kind of laughter you hear through a half-open bedroom door when you weren't supposed to be home yet. I still remember my hand on the knob. I still remember pushing the door open. And I still remember seeing my girlfriend of 3 years, wrapped up in my cousin like the two of them belonged to each other. In my bed. In the apartment I paid for. Under the framed photo she bought me for my birthday. I didn't scream. That's the part people always get wrong. They think betrayal looks loud. They think it comes with broken lamps and fists through drywall and somebody collapsing on the floor, sobbing. Mine came out ice cold. I stood there, my overnight bag slipping from my fingers, and I said, "Be gone when I get back." That was it. Then I turned around, walked back out, got in my truck, and drove for 3 hours with nowhere to go. My name's Nolan. I was 29 then, a union electrician in Columbus, Ohio. The kind of guy who liked routine. I worked early, paid my bills on time, kept my tools organized, called my mom every Sunday, and thought if you treated people well, life usually returned the favor. I wanted one simple thing, a quiet, honest future. A small house, a wife I trusted, maybe 2 kids, maybe a dog that tracked mud all over the kitchen floor. I thought I had the woman I'd build that with. Her name was Tessa, and the man she was cheating with was my cousin Blake, the one I grew up calling my brother because our fathers worked together, our mothers vacationed together, and every Christmas morning I saw his face before I even opened my own gifts. He was the one who taught me how to throw a football spiral. He was the best man in my imaginary future wedding, and he was in my bed. When I finally came back that night, the apartment was empty. Tessa had left a note on the counter. It was folded twice, like that somehow made it respectful. It said, "Please let me explain. It's not what it looked like." I actually laughed when I read that. Because what exactly had it looked like? 2 naked people filing taxes? I packed her things over the next week. Toothbrush, makeup bag, sweater she left hanging in my closet like she'd been planning to stay forever. I dropped every box at Blake's townhouse without stepping inside. Sometimes he opened the door. Sometimes she did. Both of them tried to talk. Both times, I walked away. Blake called me 10, maybe 12 times that first month. I never answered. Tessa sent one long text about confusion, timing, feelings, and how this wasn't planned. I blocked her after the second sentence. And then I did what a lot of people do when they're wrecked and too proud to say it out loud. I kept going. I took every overtime shift I could get. I stopped going to family cookouts. I stopped dating. I stopped telling the truth when people asked if I was okay. "Doing good, man," I'd say. "Busy, that's all." But busy is a great disguise for broken. For 3 years, I lived like a ghost with a paycheck. Then one Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. I answered because I thought it might be a contractor. It was Blake, and he sounded cheerful, not nervous, not ashamed. Cheerful. "Nolan," he said, like we'd just missed a fishing trip. "I know this is out of the blue, but I'm getting married next month." I leaned against the work van and looked out at a strip mall parking lot shimmering in the July heat. He kept going. "To Tessa." No pause, no apology, no hesitation. Then he said the part that made my vision blur. "I want you to be my best man." I actually thought I'd misheard him. I said, "You want me to do what?" He sighed like I was the difficult one. "I figured enough time had passed. We're family, man. I thought maybe this could be a way to move on. Move on. Like what they did was a pothole, not a crater. I exploded, called him every name I had stored up for 3 years. Told him if he ever called me again, I'd forget we were related. He waited until I ran out of breath. Then he said, calm as a priest, "Offer stands." And he hung up. That should have been the end of it. But rage does strange things when it finally gets oxygen. For the next 2 days, I couldn't focus. I kept seeing Tessa's bare shoulder, Blake's face, that note on the kitchen counter. Then I started thinking about the wedding. I pictured all those smiling people raising champagne to a love story built on my humiliation. I pictured my mother dabbing her eyes because the ceremony was beautiful. I pictured Blake getting exactly what he wanted, my silence. And somewhere between midnight and 2 in the morning, I made the worst decision of my life. Or maybe the most honest one. I texted him. "You're right. I've been angry for too long. Maybe this is how we put it behind us." He responded in less than a minute. "I knew you'd come around." That message told me everything I needed to know. Not "I'm sorry," not "thank you," not even "I don't deserve this." Just pure relief that the ugly version of the story might stay buried. The weeks leading up to the wedding were surreal. Blake paid for my tux rental upgrade. He wanted matching cufflinks for the groomsmen. He asked if I'd help with the bachelor dinner speech rotation. And every time we spoke, he acted like we were patching up some misunderstanding, not standing over the corpse of my trust. Tessa was worse. She called me once while I was driving home. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got me. Her voice came soft, careful. "I know this is strange." "You think?" She ignored that. "I'm glad you're coming." There was something in her tone that bothered me. Not guilt, not exactly. It sounded more like relief mixed with fear. Then she said, "Please don't make this harder than it has to be." I gripped the steering wheel. Harder for who? She didn't answer. That should have warned me something else was buried underneath all of this. I just didn't know what. The wedding was at a renovated estate outside Cincinnati, the kind of place with white stone arches, expensive flowers, and staff who never stopped smiling. Blake's suit probably cost more than my first car. Tessa looked stunning in a way that made me angry at myself for still being able to admit it. The room glowed with candlelight and money. Family kept squeezing my shoulder, saying things like, "This is so good to see," and "Time heals everything." I smiled until my jaw hurt. Then my Aunt Rochelle cornered me near the bar and whispered, "I'm proud of you for being mature." Mature, that word nearly made me choke. I asked, "Did you know?" Her smile flickered. "Know what?" And in that instant, I realized most of them had no idea. They thought Blake and Tessa were just a couple who happened to get together after my old relationship ended. Clean, convenient, respectable. I looked across the room at my mother. She wouldn't meet my eyes. That was when the second betrayal hit. She knew. Maybe not at first, but she knew now. And she had let me walk into that room alone, smiling for photographs beside the people who gutted me. The speeches started after dinner. Blake's college friend told a story about spring break. The maid of honor talked about soulmates and timing. People laughed. People cried. Forks clinked against plates. Then the DJ tapped the mic and said, "And now a few words from the best man, Blake's cousin, Nolan." For 1 second, I almost sat back down. I mean that. There was a version of my life where I let it go. Where I walked out quietly, went home, deleted the photos, and carried the bitterness like a stone in my pocket until it wore a hole through me. But then Blake smiled at me, like he'd won. So I stood. I took the microphone, and I looked at the crowd. "My name is Nolan," I said. "And I guess before I toast the bride and groom, there's something in this story most of you were never told." The room stilled. Blake's smile vanished first. Tessa turned white. I kept going. 3 years ago, I came home early from work and found these two in bed together. Not years after a breakup, not after some tragic love story, while Tessa was still living with me, while Blake was still eating dinner at my table, in my apartment, in my bed. A woman near the back covered her mouth. Someone dropped a fork. Blake stood halfway and hissed, "Nolan." "No," I said, louder now. "You wanted me here. You wanted me in the pictures. You wanted my face stamped on your fairy tale so nobody would ask what really happened." Tessa started crying. And for the first time, I noticed something that looked less like shame and more like panic. Then she said, not into a microphone, but loud enough for the front tables to hear, "You promised you'd never say anything." The room snapped toward Blake. "Promised?" I looked at him. "Excuse me?" Tessa was shaking now, mascara running. "You said if he came, we'd be okay. You said if Nolan stood up here with you, everyone would believe we didn't do anything wrong." That was the twist. The real one. This wasn't about forgiveness. It was about public laundering. They didn't invite me because they wanted healing. They invited me because they needed a witness for their innocence. I laughed, just once, hard and sharp. "So that's what this is." Blake lunged for the microphone, but I stepped back. "You don't get to steal my life," I said, then ask me to bless the crime scene. The silence that followed felt holy. Not satisfying, not triumphant, just final. I set the mic down on the sweetheart table and walked out. No dramatic music, no shouting behind me. Just the sound of expensive shoes and old lies sinking at the same time. My phone started ringing before I hit the highway. Mom first, then Rochelle, then numbers I didn't know. I ignored all of them until I got home, took off the tux, and sat on the floor of my living room in my undershirt, staring at the wall like I just survived a fire I started myself. Finally, I answered my mother. She didn't say hello. She shouted, "How could you do this? You humiliated the whole family!" I asked, "Did you know?" Silence. Then, "It was years ago." That's not an answer. That's a confession wearing a cardigan. "Did you know?" Her voice cracked. I found out after. Blake's father begged us not to say anything. He said you were already hurting, and exposing it would only make things worse. I stood up so fast I knocked over the coffee table. "You protected them?" "We were trying to keep peace." "No," I said. "You were trying to keep appearances." She started crying then, but something inside me had gone still. I told her, "You didn't lose me tonight. You lost me when you decided betrayal was easier to live with than truth." And I hung up. That night, I blocked half my family. Over the next month, more truths came out. Blake had told different versions of the story to different people. Tessa had tried to call off the wedding twice. My aunt had pressured them to make it official because the gossip was getting bad. And apparently, several relatives had pushed hard for me to be included because they thought my presence would prove there was no bad blood. As if forgiveness is a prop. The marriage lasted 11 months. Not because of me. Not really. People like that don't collapse because one truth gets exposed. They collapse because they're built on 100 smaller lies stacked too high. Blake cheated on Tessa. Tessa moved out. Their divorce got ugly, public, and petty in exactly the way I'd predicted. But here's the part nobody expects when they hear this story. Ruining that wedding didn't heal me. Not immediately. It gave me a rush, sure. A savage, electric kind of satisfaction. For a few days, I felt taller, lighter, vindicated. Then came the crash. Because revenge can break a silence, but it can't build a life. I still had to wake up as myself. Still had to deal with the years I'd lost to anger. Still had to ask why I kept choosing people who mistook my loyalty for weakness. So I did something harder than exposing them. I changed. I got therapy. Real therapy. The kind where you stop performing toughness and start naming wounds correctly. I moved to Nashville for a bigger union contract. I made friends who knew nothing about Blake or Tessa or the wedding. I started dating again, slowly, badly at first, then honestly. 4 years later, I'm 36. I'm engaged now. Her name is Maura. She's a trauma nurse with a laugh that fills a room and a habit of grabbing my wrist when she wants my full attention. The first time I told her the story, I waited for her to judge me. She just said, "That must have hurt like hell." And I swear to God, I nearly cried harder at that than I did the day I caught them. Because sometimes, healing doesn't begin when somebody apologizes. Sometimes, it begins when somebody finally tells the truth about what happened to you. A few months ago, Blake messaged me from a new number. Just one line. "I hope ruining my wedding made you happy." I stared at it for a long time, then I typed back, "No. Telling the truth did." And that's the difference. If you ever have to choose between being called cruel and being erased from your own story, choose truth. People who betray you will always call your reaction the problem. Let them. Some endings aren't clean. Some closure comes with shattered glass under your shoes. But I'd rather walk over broken pieces than spend one more day pretending they were never there. And if that makes me the villain in their version, so be it. At least in mine, I survived.